Claire Morrison walked into the training hall on a cold morning in late spring. The floor was smooth and made of a material that did not exist on Earth. The walls were transparent, showing the green valleys and purple mountains beyond. The other cadets watched her come in. They had been waiting. She was the only human in the Advanced Tactics course at the Galactic Military Academy. The academy sat on the planet Zentris, which orbited a star the humans could not pronounce. Claire carried her rifle on her shoulder. It was made of metal and wood and plastic. It had a scope on top and a magazine in the middle, and a stock that pressed against her shoulder when she fired. It looked old compared to the weapons of the other cadets. It looked simple. It looked weak. The Vex cadets did not even look up when Claire entered. They were fixing their energy weapons, which glowed with a blue light that made the air hum. The Vex were tall and thin with skin like glass. They could see heat through walls. They could move faster than humans could think. Their weapons could burn through metal in less than a second. They looked at Claire's rifle and turned away. The Krell were different. The Krell stared at Claire with all three of their eyes. Their commander, Veth, was the one who ran the training for this course. He had a body like an insect, but with more arms and a larger brain that humans could actually see through his transparent skull. The Krell did not laugh. They did not need to. They just looked at her rifle the way one might look at a stone tool in a museum. Old, dead, no longer useful. Claire set her rifle down on the table that was assigned to her. The table was at the far end of the hall, away from the others. She did not mind. She had learned that humans were not wanted here. The Academy had admitted humans only because of a political deal between Earth and the Galactic Council. The deal said that any species in the Council had to be allowed to send its young to the Academy. No exceptions. So Earth had sent its best. And humans had been coming to Zentris for 3 years now. But they did not do well. Most of them failed. Most of them went home and never came back. Claire was different. She had already passed 4 courses. She was the first human to make it to the Advanced Tactics level. But she did not think the other cadets respected her. She knew they did not. She checked her rifle. The scope was clean. The barrel was clean. The magazine was full. She had done this same check 10,000 times before. The rifle was not special. It was not made by an alien company. It did not have technology that humans did not understand. It was just a rifle. Made on Earth, made by humans. Made the way rifles had been made for 200 years. Commander Veth walked over to Claire's table. His 3 eyes looked down at the rifle. His mandible moved. When the Krell's mouthparts moved like that, it meant they were thinking. Or sometimes, it meant they were making fun of something. Claire could never tell the difference. "Human?" Veth said. His voice sounded like rocks being crushed. "You will participate in the test today?" "Yes, sir," Claire said. "You understand that you will be tested alongside cadets whose weapons have been developed over thousands of years of advancement." "I understand, sir. And you still wish to proceed?" Claire looked at her rifle. Then she looked at the Vex weapons that could burn through walls. Then she looked at the Krell Gnarl targeting systems that did not need eyes to shoot. Then she looked back at Veth. "Yes, sir," she said. "I wish to proceed." Veth made a sound like gravel moving in a bucket. It was his laugh. "Very well," he said. "Your participation will be recorded. For historical purposes." He walked away. The other cadets heard this exchange. Some of them made sounds of their own. The Tander, who had 4 arms and yellow skin, whispered something to the Hex, who had 6 arms and a body made of crystal that caught the light. They both looked at Claire. They were laughing too. Claire did not move. She sat at her table and she waited. Around her, the other cadets fixed their weapons. The Vex did not need to fix anything. Their weapons just worked. The Krell did not need to fix anything either. Their weapons were connected to their brains. The Tander checked their gravity disruptors. The Hex checked their plasma projectors. And Claire sat with her rifle and she did nothing, because there was nothing to do. Her rifle did not need fixing. It never did. When she was 8 years old, Claire's father had taught her to shoot. He was a competition marksman. He had spent his whole life learning how to hit targets that were far away and small and hard to see. He taught Claire how to breathe. He taught her how to hold the gun. He taught her how to squeeze the trigger so that the shot did not surprise you. He taught her that shooting was not about power. It was about control. It was about knowing what your body could do and then doing it again and again until it became natural. Her mother had been different. Her mother had been a tactical officer for Earth Defense Command. Her mother had taught Claire how to think about targets, how to choose which target to shoot and when to shoot it, and why shooting that target mattered. Her mother taught her that a good shooter knew their weapon, but a good tactical officer knew what the weapon was for. Claire had both teachers in her blood. She could shoot, and she understood why shooting mattered. But here at the academy, none of that seemed to matter. Technology mattered. Speed mattered. Power mattered. But skill, patience, understanding, those things did not matter anymore. The training hall fell silent. It was time for the first test. A young Vex stepped forward. She was small, even for a Vex. Her energy weapon glowed in her hands. Commander Veth pointed to the target range outside. The range stretched across the open field that lay beyond the transparent wall. 300 targets were hidden in the field. Some were moving. Some were stationary. Some were hidden behind rocks and vegetation. Some would move when other targets were hit, testing the cadet's ability to react. The Vex began. Her weapon sang. Blue light cut through the air. One target exploded. Then another. Then 5 more, all in the time it took Claire to breathe once. The Vex did not aim. She did not need to. Her eyes could see the heat signatures of the targets before they were visible to normal sight. Her weapon could hit them faster than thought. When she was finished, the scorekeeper announced that she had hit 97 targets in 20 minutes. The Krell cheered with their grinding sound. The Vex, who had just finished, bowed to her commander. The human sat in her chair and watched. She waited for her turn. She knew what was coming. She knew that her rifle would seem slow compared to what she had just seen. She knew that everyone watching would think she was foolish for even trying, but she did not have the choice not to try. She was here. She would shoot. And the Galactic Council would see what a human could do with nothing but a rifle, and a mind that had been trained since childhood to understand the art of hitting targets. News spread through the academy faster than any weapon could fire. By the next morning, every cadet and every instructor knew that Claire Morrison had scored higher than any of them. 104 targets. The number became famous. The number became something that everyone talked about in the halls and in the training rooms and in the places where cadets slept. The alien cadets reacted in different ways. Some of them were angry. The Vex demanded that the test be done again. She said that there must have been an error in the counting system. She said that her weapon must have malfunctioned. She said anything except the truth, which was that a human had beaten her fairly. The Krell were different. Krell 1 came to the training hall the next day, and he asked to speak with Claire. She was cleaning her rifle. She was always cleaning her rifle. The Krell stood across from her for a long moment without speaking. "How did you do that?" he asked finally. Claire did not look up from her work. "I've been shooting since I was 8 years old," she said. "My father trained me. My mother trained me. I have shot 10,000 times, maybe more. I know my rifle the way you know your own thoughts. But my weapon is better," Krell 1 said. My weapon is more advanced. Yes, Claire said. But you have only been using your weapon since you came to the academy. I have been using mine my whole life. Some things cannot be made better by technology. Some things just need time. Krell looked at her rifle. He looked at it the way he might look at something that did not make sense. Could you teach me? He asked. Claire stopped cleaning her rifle. She looked at the Krell directly. Teach you what? To shoot the way you shoot. To find targets the way you find them. To think the way you think. Your neural system is faster than my eyes, Claire said. Your brain is better than my brain. But my eyes were made to track things moving across grassland. My mind was made by evolution to understand distance and wind and time. Your systems were made by technology. Technology is new. Evolution took millions of years. Then I cannot learn, Krell said. No, Claire said. You can learn, but it will take a long time. You will have to practice the way I practice. You will have to be patient. You will have to accept that you are slow at first. The Krell do not like to be slow. Krell stood there for a moment. Then he sat down next to Claire. I would like to learn, he said. By the end of that week, Krell was not the only one. The Vex came to Claire and asked how she tracked moving targets so well. The Tander asked about her breathing technique. The Hex asked about how she calculated trajectories without a computer. One by one, the alien cadets who had mocked her rifle came to her table and asked questions. Some of them came because they wanted to understand. Some of them came because they wanted to beat her. Some of them came because they realized that maybe there was something to learn from a species that had survived on a deadly planet with only their wits and their hands. Claire taught them what she knew. She showed them how to position their bodies. She showed them how to breathe so that their hands did not shake. She showed them how to look at a target and know instantly how far it was and what speed it was moving at. She showed them that human intuition was not magic. It was just pattern recognition developed over millions of years of hunting. 2 weeks after the test, the Academy held a meeting of all the instructors. Commander Veth stood before them and made a report. He told them about Claire's score. He told them that it was higher than any previous score in the history of the Academy. He told them that it was achieved with mechanical technology rather than electronic technology. The implications are significant, Veth said. We have assumed that advanced technology is always superior to primitive technology. The human has shown us that this assumption is not always correct. The human has shown us that intelligence and training and patience can accomplish what we thought only our most advanced weapons could accomplish. One of the other instructors, a being from a species called Devio, asked a question. What does this mean for military strategy? Devio asked. It means, Veth said slowly, that we may have been wrong about many things. If a human with a mechanical rifle can outperform our most advanced cadets with our most advanced weapons, then perhaps we have been thinking about warfare incorrectly. Perhaps we have been relying too much on technology and not enough on training. Perhaps we have been forgetting that the being holding the weapon matters more than the weapon itself. The instructors looked at each other. This was a new thought. This was something that challenged everything they believed about how the galaxy worked. The next day, Claire was called to Commander Veth's office. The office was large and transparent, showing the purple mountains beyond. Veth sat behind his desk and looked at her with all three of his eyes. "You've caused a disturbance," he said. "I apologize, sir," Claire said. "No," Veth said. "Do not apologize. A disturbance is what we needed. You have shown the Academy something that we had forgotten. You have shown us that underestimating an opponent is the most dangerous mistake we can make." He paused. "The Galactic Council will want to know about your performance. They will want to understand what you represent. You may become very important, Claire Morrison. You may become the first human that the galaxy takes seriously." "I just shot targets, sir," Claire said. "No," Veth said. "You did much more than that. You proved that humans belong here. You proved that humans can compete with the most advanced species in the galaxy. And you did it with a rifle that was old when your mother was born." Claire left the office feeling strange. She had just wanted to pass the course. She had just wanted to show that she could do the work. She had not thought about what her success might mean for all of humanity. But now she understood. She was not just Claire Morrison anymore. She was the human with the rifle who had beaten everyone. She was the living proof that her species belonged among the stars. The first test happened at dawn. The sun's entrance was larger than Earth's sun, and it was orange. It made the shadows very dark. The training ground was a ravine with rocks and water and vegetation that did not grow anywhere else in the galaxy. The targets were scattered across this difficult terrain. Some could only be seen from certain angles. Some moved when triggered by other events. Some were hidden so well that an electronic system needed extra time to find them. 300 targets waited to be hit. Each cadet had exactly 20 minutes. The score was simple. How many targets could you hit in that time? Nothing else mattered. Speed mattered. Accuracy mattered. The ability to find targets mattered. But nothing else. The Vex went first again, as they had in every test since Claire arrived at the academy. The young female Vex, who had scored 97 on the previous test, stood at the firing line. Today she looked more confident. Today she thought she would do even better. She fired her weapon. The blue light cut through the ravine. Targets exploded, one after another after another. Her eyes tracked things that human eyes could not see. Her weapon moved with a speed that looked like magic. She found targets in shadows. She found targets hidden behind rocks. She found targets that other cadets had not even known existed. In 20 minutes, she scored 103 targets. The Vex cadets made sounds of joy. Their commander made an approving noise. The Vex was the best. Everyone knew the Vex would be the best. Then a Krell stepped forward. The Krell was male. His name was hard to pronounce, so the human cadets just called him Krell 1. He had been at the academy for 5 years. He had won every combat simulation that the academy offered. His neural targeting system was considered the best in the entire military. When Krell 1 focused on a target, he did not use his eyes. He closed all 3 of them. He just thought, and his weapon fired, and the target died. He took the firing line and closed his eyes. For 20 minutes, Krell 1 did not move. He just stood there with his eyes closed and his weapon held in front of him. But targets were exploding all across the ravine. His neural system was finding them faster than the eye could follow. His shots were perfect. No wasted energy. No missed targets. Just absolute precision from beginning to end. When the timer ended, his score was announced. 98 targets, 1 less than the Vex. That this was expected. Speed had always been the Vex advantage. But Krell 1 was still superior in other ways. He could think faster than any other species in the galaxy. He was content with 98. One by one, the other cadets took their turns. The Tander scored 85. The Hex scored 92. The Luminar, who could see into the future for exactly 3 seconds, scored 88. The Shar, whose weapons could change shape, scored 84. By the time all the alien cadets had fired, the scores ranged from 82 to 103. Then Commander Veth looked toward the far end of the training ground. "Human," he said. "It is your time." Claire stood up. She had been sitting in the shade, watching the others. She had drunk water. She had checked her rifle 3 times. She had done breathing exercises that her father had taught her. She had visualized the ravine and all 300 targets. The way her mother had taught her, she walked to the firing line. She did not speak to any of the other cadets. She did not acknowledge their stares or their quiet laughter. She just took position. She chambered the first round. She pressed her cheek against the stock and looked through the scope. The world through the scope was different. Everything else disappeared. The other cadets disappeared. The alien weapons disappeared. The feeling of being weak and small and inferior disappeared. There was only the target in her vision and the breathing in her chest, and the finger on the trigger. She fired. The first target exploded. Then she moved. Not with the speed of a Vex, but with the efficiency of someone who had done this 10,000 times. She did not waste motion. She did not fire blindly. Every movement served a purpose. Every shot was aimed. Every target was found with her eyes and confirmed by her scope, and then struck with the mechanical precision of a human who had learned this skill since childhood. She fired at the targets in the shadows. Her eyes, evolved to track movement across vast African grasslands, could see them where electronic sensors needed extra seconds. She fired at the targets hidden behind vegetation. Her mind, trained to calculate wind and distance without thinking, adjusted for the environment automatically. She fired at the targets that other cadets had missed. Her rifle, simple and mechanical and made of materials that existed for 200 years, functioned perfectly. The shots came in a steady rhythm. Not fast like the Vex, not powered by neural connection like the Krell, just steady and sure and absolutely constant. 10 minutes. She was halfway through the ravine. 53 targets hit. 15 minutes. She had changed position twice and found new angles on the harder targets. 86 targets hit. 18 minutes. She could see only a few targets remaining. The ones that were hardest to find. The ones hidden in the deepest shadows or behind the most difficult obstacles. 20 minutes. The timer ended. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop. Claire lowered her rifle and turned around. Commander Veth was checking the electronic count. His mandible had gone very still. His 3 eyes were looking at the numbers on the device. He looked confused. He looked at the device again. He looked at Claire. He looked at the numbers a third time. "What is the count?" The Vex commander asked. Her voice was sharp and suspicious. Veth's grinding voice was very quiet when he answered. 104 targets, he said. The human has hit 104 targets. The training ground went completely silent. 104. More than any Vex, more than any Crow, more than the combined score of the 2 aliens, who had previously had the highest marks. A human, with a rifle made of metal and wood and plastic. A rifle that was 200 years old in design. A rifle that required nothing but the skill of the being holding it. Claire stood at the firing line and looked at the faces of all the alien cadets. Some of them looked angry. Some of them looked shocked. Some of them looked like they were trying to understand what they had just seen, and they could not. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She just set down her rifle carefully on the ground and walked back to her table. Behind her, the Vex commander stood with her weapon still glowing in her hands. The Krell sat with his eyes still closed, trying to process how a human with primitive technology had beaten him, and Commander Veth made a note in his report. He would need to rewrite the evaluation protocols. Something had changed. Something impossible had happened. And the galaxy needed to know that the humans were no longer weak. 3 weeks after Claire's incredible performance, the Academy announced the final evaluation. This test would not be like the others. This test would not just measure accuracy and speed. This test would measure judgment. This test would measure the ability to think and choose and understand the difference between what could be hit and what should be hit. The Academy worked with the Galactic Council to design the scenario. Military theorists from 7 different species contributed to the exercise. They wanted to create something that would test the highest abilities of the most skilled cadets. They wanted to see who could not just shoot accurately, but who could shoot wisely. The scenario was complex. The cadets would be placed in a simulated combat zone. There would be targets of different types scattered across the terrain. Some targets would be civilians. Some would be military soldiers. Some would be high-value commanders. Some would be weapons installations. Some would be shields protecting civilians. Some would be communication towers. Some would be medical facilities. The rule was simple but difficult. You had to choose which targets to hit and which to leave alone. You had to decide what was more important. You had to understand that shooting something might have consequences beyond just hitting that target. You had to think like a commander, not just like a shooter. The first cadet to try was Krell 1. He had been practicing for weeks. He had learned to slow down his neural targeting system so that he could actually think about his choices rather than just shooting everything. He moved through the simulated zone carefully. He shot at military targets. He avoided civilian areas. He destroyed weapons that were pointed at hospitals. He did not shoot at random. He made choices. When his test was finished, his score was calculated by a different system than before. It was not just about how many targets he hit. It was about the strategic value of what he hit. It was about whether his choices made tactical sense. His final score was 93. The Vex went next. She had the same understanding now that Krell 1 did. She could not just burn everything. She had to choose. She moved quickly through the zone. Her scores on pure accuracy were still high, but her strategic choices were not as good as Krell 1's. Her final score was 87. The other cadets came and went. The Tander scored 82. The Hex scored 90. The Vira scored 79. The Luminar scored 86. As each score was announced, the previous high became the target to beat. But no one beat Krell 1's 93. Then Claire was called. She walked to the starting position of the simulated zone. She had prepared for this test differently than she had prepared for the others. She had not just practiced shooting. She had read about military strategy. She had studied previous battles. She had learned about the kinds of decisions that commanders had to make. She understood that she could shoot accurately. That was not the question anymore. The question now was whether she could shoot wisely. The simulation began. Claire moved through the terrain slowly. She was not trying to find every target. She was trying to understand the scenario. She looked at the positions of the military forces. She looked at where the civilians were located. She looked at the weapons and asked herself what each weapon could do. In the first part of the zone, she saw a targeting control station. This station was directing fire at a hospital where civilians were sheltering. She shot the control station first. One carefully aimed shot. The shooting stopped. Next, she found a command center where military leaders were organizing their forces. But the command center was inside a building. To get to the command center, she would have to shoot through walls that might contain other people. She decided not to shoot at the command center directly. Instead, she shot the communication lines that the command center used. Now the military leaders could not coordinate their forces. They would be less effective without needing her to kill them. She moved through the zone with a clear mind. Every choice made sense. Every target had a reason. She was not shooting to impress anyone. She was shooting to accomplish a goal. And the goal was to end the conflict in the most efficient way with the least amount of unnecessary death. 30 minutes into the simulation, Claire saw a situation that required a hard choice. There was a weapons platform that was pointed at a civilian area. If she did not destroy the platform, the simulation would show civilian deaths. But between her position and the platform was a shelter marked with a medical symbol. That shelter contained simulated medical personnel. Claire could shoot through the shelter. Her rifle was accurate enough. She could hit the weapons platform and maybe only hurt a few of the medical people. Or she could not shoot at the weapons platform at all and let the civilians die. Or she could find another way. She spent 3 minutes looking for another way. She found it. She shot at the power lines that ran to the weapons platform. Without power, the platform could not fire. The medical people were safe. The weapons platform was disabled. The civilians were saved. This was the kind of thinking that won wars. Not just shooting at things, but understanding what needed to be shot and what did not. When the simulation ended, the scores were calculated. The judges looked at the results. They looked at how many targets Claire had hit. 62 targets. That was fewer than any other cadet had hit. But that was not how the new scoring system worked. The scoring system now looked at the value of each target that was hit. It looked at how many problems were solved by each shot. It looked at whether the strategy made sense. Claire's score was calculated slowly. The judges had to argue about some of her choices. One judge thought she should have hit a different target. Another judge agreed with her reasoning. A third judge looked at the results and understood that Claire had accomplished something that the others had not. She had not just shot targets. She had ended the conflict with the minimum amount of damage. The final score was announced. 108. No one moved. No one spoke. 108. Higher than any score that had ever been given in the history of the Academy. And it was higher not just in numbers, but in what it represented. It meant that accuracy was not enough. It meant that speed was not enough. It meant that true excellence came from understanding what you were doing and why you were doing it. Claire lowered her rifle. Around the training area, the other cadets stared at her. The Vex looked angry. The Krell looked thoughtful. The Tander looked amazed. Commander Veth approached Claire. He walked slowly. All three of his eyes were fixed on her. His mandible was still. When he reached her, he raised one of his clawed hands and placed it on her shoulder. The gesture was formal. The gesture meant something important among the Krell. It meant respect. It meant acknowledgement. You have not just won this evaluation, Veth said quietly. His voice was only for Claire to hear, but the other cadets leaned forward to listen. You have changed what it means to be excellent. You have shown us that the most important part of any weapon is the intelligence that holds it. He paused. She hits every target, he said. Not because she is the fastest. Not because she has the best technology. She hits every target because she understands why each target matters. She hits every target because she thinks. He removed his hand from her shoulder and stepped back. You will graduate, Veth said, and the galaxy will take notice. Because you are not just a cadet anymore. You are proof that humans are the equal of any species in this galaxy. Claire Morrison graduated from the Galactic Military Academy on a warm afternoon in early summer. The ceremony was held in the Great Hall where the founders of the Academy had been honored for thousands of years. Now, the human who had shocked everyone with her rifle was receiving her, commissioned as a lieutenant commander of the interspecies fleet. The leaders of the Academy stood and announced her scores. The rest of the galaxy heard about the human who had beaten all the other cadets. New ships carried the story to every star system. Human colonies on 12 different planets learned that one of their kind had proven that humans could compete at the highest levels. But Claire did not feel proud. She felt tired. She felt like she had been carrying weight on her shoulders for the entire time she had been at the Academy. And now that weight was still there, because everyone was looking at her. Everyone was expecting her to do more. Everyone was wondering what a human could really do if given the chance. In the weeks after her graduation, Claire received 14 job offers from different military commands. The Galactic Council wanted to hire her as a tactical consultant. The Vex offered her a position in their Advanced Weapons Research Division. The Krell wanted her to help train their new cadets. The human government back on Earth wanted her to lead the entire human military. She accepted the job from Commander Veth. Veth had asked her to stay at the academy. He asked her to become an instructor. He asked her to teach the next generation of cadets what she knew. He asked her to be the one who showed young soldiers from all species that they were capable of more than they thought. Claire accepted. She took the position and she reported to the academy on the first day of the new training year. The first cadets to come to her class looked at her the same way the older cadets had looked at her when she first arrived. They saw a human with a rifle. They saw primitive technology. They saw someone who did not belong, but they did not know what was coming. On the first day of training, Claire walked to the center of the training hall, and she set her rifle on a table. The cadets watched her. There were 28 cadets in the class. They came from 17 different species. Some had weapons that glowed with power. Some had weapons connected to their minds. Some had weapons that could change shape or phase through matter. And they all watched the human with the mechanical rifle. "I know what you are thinking," Claire said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone could hear it. "I know that you think this rifle is weak. I know that you think your weapons are better. I know that you think humans should not be here teaching you." She paused. She looked at each cadet. "You are right," she said. "Your weapons are better. In almost every way, your weapons are superior. Your weapons are faster. Your weapons are more powerful. Your weapons are more advanced." The cadets looked at each other. This was not what they expected. "But," Claire continued, "a weapon is only as good as the being holding it. And the being holding the weapon is only as good as the intelligence guiding it. And intelligence comes from thinking. And thinking comes from experience. And experience comes from practicing and failing and trying again." She picked up her rifle. "This rifle," she said, "was designed 200 years ago. The principles that make it work are even older. But it still shoots straight. It still hits targets. It still works because humans understand how to make it work. We do not have the most advanced technology. We never have. But we have learned to be very good at using what we have." She set the rifle down again. "I was where you are once," she said. "I was the only one of my kind in a room full of cadets who seemed superior. I thought I had no chance. I thought I would fail. I thought I should just go home and accept that my species was not good enough." She looked at the youngest cadet in the class. The cadet was very young and very small. It was a Tander, and it looked scared. "But I did not go home," Claire said. "I stayed. And I learned. And I practiced. And I failed many times. But I learned something that you all need to learn. I learned that the only real limitation you have is the one you believe in." Over the next months, Claire taught her cadets. She taught them how to shoot. She taught them how to think about targeting. She taught them how to make choices about when to shoot and when not to shoot. She taught them everything her father had taught her and everything her mother had taught her and everything she had learned. In the 20 years before she ever came to this academy, and something changed in her cadets. They began to believe in themselves. The young Tander who had looked scared learned to hit targets with consistency. The Hex who had thought mechanical precision was impossible learned that they could understand it. The Vex who had relied on speed alone learned that patience could be valuable too. One day, a year after Claire had graduated, the Vex cadet who had first laughed at Claire's rifle came to her office. "I want to apologize," the Vex said. "For what?" Claire asked. for thinking that your rifle was weak, for thinking that you were weak. I was wrong. You were not wrong about the rifle, Claire said. The rifle is old. The rifle is simple. But you were wrong about what that means. Simple does not mean weak. Different does not mean inferior. The Vex nodded and left the office. That night, Claire went to the training range and set up targets the way she had set them up 1,000 times before. She loaded her rifle and she fired. The targets fell, one after another, the same steady rhythm that had surprised the Academy and shocked the galaxy. But now, when she shot, she understood something that she had not understood before. She understood that her shooting was not just about her skill. It was about all the humans who had come before her. It was about her father who had taught her patience. It was about her mother who had taught her to think. It was about all the humans on Earth who had learned to survive on a dangerous planet with nothing but their wits and their hands. Every time she pulled the trigger, she was telling the galaxy something. She was telling them that humans belonged here. She was telling them that humans could think and learn and improve. She was telling them that the most important part of any victory was the being who made the choice to fight. A month later, Commander Veth came to the training range. He stood and watched Claire shoot. When she was finished, he approached her. "The Galactic Council has heard about your work as an instructor," he said. "They want to offer you a new position. They want you to lead a joint military task force. A task force with soldiers from all species working together. They want you to show the galaxy what happens when all species work as one." Claire looked at her rifle. She thought about all the times she had shot these targets. She thought about all the cadets she had trained. She thought about what it meant to be the first human in positions that had never been held by humans before. "I will accept," she said. And so the human who had arrived at the Academy as an outsider became the commander that the galaxy looked to for leadership. And in the halls of the Academy and the military bases across the stars, cadets and soldiers told stories about the human with the rifle. They told stories about how she had proven that a being from a dangerous planet could stand equal with the most advanced species in existence. And they always ended the story the same way. "She hits every target," they would whisper. "Not because her weapon is the best, but because she thinks, because she understands, because she chooses wisely. She hits every target because her mind is her greatest weapon." And the galaxy learned that underestimating humans was the most dangerous mistake any species could make. Because humans did not need the best technology. Humans just needed the chance to prove what they could do.